man. In fact, if they are cut off, we have to forget that man being a man again. So when we have nerve damages, this is possible for one to experience impotency or inability of a man to satisfy his partner when it comes to sexual relations. That's why we're saying anytime we are faced with anything that we have been able to mention today, or things we are unable to touch due to time constraints, the best thing is to visit health caregiver to be able to counsel one to know the way out of all these challenges.
Remember, Abiola Nature Therapy Limited does not have marketers or agents moving from one location to the other to market its products and services. If you notice activity of such people in your area, please do us a favor by calling this number for necessary action against them.
For more enlightenment and advice, the number to call is
080
Reduce the height of that light for me.
55 1040. I take it again. 080 35 55 1040. One more time. 080 35 55 1040. All right. You've been listening to the program Roots and Herbs.
If you have me pen and paper, I don't know. Pen and paper.
I suggest possible ways out from the herbal medicine perspective. Root and Herbs is put together and sponsored by Abiola Nature Therapy Limited. And Abiola Nature Therapy Limited is currently having a special promo package. This promo package will give you the opportunity to enjoy 50% discount on all their products and services. This offer runs while the stock lasts. Their phone number is 080 35 55 1040. I take it again. 080 35 55 1040. Until next time, when we shall come your way, remain blessed.
Abiola Nature Therapy. Ladies and gentlemen, gossip day for town.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I've seen it. Yes.
Sickness and disease inside your body, contact the ball. After them now, you go carry rocket herbal medicine that could give you that sickness and that disease in one blow and 7 apples.
Abiola Nature Therapy.
Get a for special promo package for all their product and the service. For this promo, use your tickets to Mastaki to make Papa himself Kuru can one-on-one. This special Amfu promo, it will run the wine stock last to dealer, make the family not get to fight out. Make it right now. Go for
Abiola Nature Therapy.
Send the office to get your proper treatment now.
Abiola Nature Therapy.
This is the only station that is authorized to make you happy. Rhythm 93.7.
Leadership, politics, power. Discover what it all means. It's a class on history, a guide to today. From national debates to global diplomacy. This is Essays in Perspective with Mbum Ferdinand on Rhythm 93.7 Jaws. Morning clarity Monday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. Put in the news in context. Leadership, politics, power. Discover what it all means. It's a class on history, a guide to today. From national debates to global diplomacy. This is Essays in Perspective with Mbum Ferdinand on Rhythm 93.7 Jaws.
Yeah, and the background song is usually dry, so we'll be bringing it up. You understand? We try to bring the background song up.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning, and welcome again today to another edition of Issues in Perspective. Yes, you know how we always do it here. Last week we were here together Monday through to Wednesday, and today we are here again. Remember the last topic we talked about that we're discussing last week was about the July 29 mutiny of 1966 that brought a 31-year-old lieutenant colonel from Army headquarters, Yakubu Gowon, to become head of state, the youngest man ever to rule Nigeria to date. We'll still go there. Issues in Perspective is a production of History Desk TV Limited. Once again, we are gathered here to engage in a class of current affairs, a class of history, a class of leadership and power that deals with diplomacy and the complexity of governance. My name is Mbum Ferdinand, and I believe we are here to learn from each other as well as understanding ourselves. In this class, I will also be recommending books for you to study. As I will always say, for those of us who are Nigerians, if you want to understand the Nigerian story, you must study Nigeria. We'll open our lines early so that you can make your contributions as early as possible. But today, they always say charity begins at home. But today, charity will begin overseas, because we will be looking at international politics and diplomacy. And here we will give you information on certain international happenings of the past. If you are curious on certain stories, you can call and ask questions. Or if you think you have some information that we do not have, you can call to make your additions. We are going to be looking at the story of former United States President Gerald Ford. Ford became the first and only politician to date in United States history to assume the office of the vice president and the office of the president without being ever elected. You can't beat that. How was that possible? Let's see. But let's look at the Watergate scandal. Let's begin from there. Meanwhile, the lines are open. The number to call is 08 process and his eventual resignation in August of 1974. Emerging from the White House's intelligence efforts to stop leaks, the Watergate break-in was an implementation of Operation Gemstone, enacted by mostly Cuban burglars, led by former intelligence agents A. Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy. After the burglars' arrest, investigators traced their funding to the committee for the re-election of the president, the fundraising arm of Nixon's campaign. Further revelations from investigators and reporters like the Washington Post, Bob Woodward, and Carl Bernstein, who were guided by Deep Throat, the leaking FBI Associate Director, Mark Fate, revealed a political espionage illegally funded by donor contributions. Nixon denied responsibility, but his administration destroyed evidence, obstructed investigators, and bribed the arrested burglars. The cover-up was initially successful and allowed Nixon to win a landslide re-election. Revelations from the burglars' trial in early 1973 led to a Senate investigation. In April, Nixon denied wrongdoing and accepted top aide's resignation. In May, Attorney General Elliot Richardson appointed Archibald Cox as special prosecutor for Watergate. Cox subpoenaed Nixon's Oval Office tapes, but Nixon cited executive privilege and refused to release them, sparking a constitutional crisis. In the Saturday Night Massacre, yes, the Saturday Night Massacre in the US referred to a period where top government officials were tendering their resignation or being sacked as a result of the scandal, the Watergate scandal. So in the Saturday Night Massacre in October, Nixon ordered Richardson to fire Cox, after which Richardson resigned, as it is Deputy William Ruckelshaw Solicitor General Robert Buck carried out the order. The incident bolstered a growing public belief that President Nixon had something to hide, but he continued to proclaim innocence. The first batch of surrender tapes revealed that 2 were missing and another had an intentional 18-minute erasure. In April of 1974, Cox's replacement, Leon Jaworski, reissued a subpoena to the tapes, but Nixon only released retracted transcripts. In July of 1974, the Supreme Court ordered Nixon to release the tapes, and the House Judiciary Committee recommended that he be impeached for obstructing justice, abuse of power, and contempt of Congress. In one tape known as the smoking gun, he ordered aides to make the CIA stop the FBI's investigation. On the verge of being impeached, President Richard Nixon resigned on the 9th of August 1974, becoming to date the only president in United States history to do so. In total, 69 people were charged with Watergate-related crimes, including 2 cabinet members, and most pleaded guilty or were convicted. But President Nixon was pardoned by his vice president and successor, Gerald Ford. Watergate, often considered the greatest presidential scandal in United States history, tarnished Nixon's legacy and had electoral ramifications for the Republican Party. The loss of 4 Senate seats and 48 House seats in the 1974 midterm elections. President Gerald Ford's pardon of Nixon is only widely agreed to have contributed to his election defeat in 1976. Despite significant coverage, no consensus exists on the motive for the break-in, nor who specifically ordered it. Theories ranging from an incompetent break-in by rogue campaign officials to a sex espionage operation or CIA plot. The scandal generated over 30 memoirs and left such an impression that it is common for scandals, even outside politics or the United States, to be named with the suffix Gates. As I will always tell you, I will always recommend books for you to go out there and study. If you want to really get to know about the Watergate scandal, that erupted in the United States between 1972 and 1974. It was a really full-blown scandal that involved the United States President Richard Nixon directly. Remember, Richard Nixon was once the vice president in the United States. Yes, he was once the vice president in the late 1950s and contested the presidency with slain President John F. Kennedy in 1960. John F. Kennedy eventually won that election. It was a very, very close contest. So Kennedy won narrowly. But Nixon came back and became president in the late 1960s. And due to his involvement in the Watergate scandal, he tendered his resignation. We'll come back and look at Gerald Ford. So if you really want to get full details, you want to really be educated about the Watergate scandal, then read these books. Go and get these books online. You can get them online. You can get them in bookshops. You can get them online. The Real Watergate Scandal by Geoff Shepard. Try lay your hands on that book. There's another one, Watergate by Jules Archer. Then there's a third one. There are a lot of books on the Watergate scandal. You heard the over 31 memos were written about the Watergate, but you can go for either of these 3. I believe you will enjoy yourself. Then the third one, Watergate: The Hidden History by Lamar Waldron. You can get these books from online bookshops, and you can go on eBay. Maybe you'll get them there and buy them and study them. If you want to become a leader, as I will always tell you, you must read books. If you don't read books, then you are doing yourself a great disservice. Now let us look at the man himself, the man at the center of this discussion, President Gerald Ford, the only politician in US history who became the vice president and president without ever being elected. You can't beat that. If there's any form of fasting and prayer that I can start so that I can be vice president and president tomorrow without being elected, I think I have to start it now. Yes, let's look at Ford. Gerald Ford was born on the 14th of July, 1913, in Nebraska, the United States of America. He was the 38th president of the United States from 1974 until 1977, and he was the 40th vice president. He had succeeded to the presidency on the resignation of President Richard Nixon under the process decreed by the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution, and thereby became the country's only chief executive who had not been elected either president or vice president. We had told you that earlier. Gerald Ford was a member of the University of Michigan football team in 1938. After graduating from the University of Michigan, and that was in 1933, after graduating in 1935, where he was a star football player, Ford worked as an assistant coach while he earned a law degree from Yale University in 1941. He joined the U.S. Navy during World War II and served in the South Pacific, attaining the rank of lieutenant commander and nearly losing his life in 1944 during a deadly typhoon that killed hundreds. In 1948, the year he won his first elective office as Republican congressman from Michigan, he married Elizabeth Ann Bloomer, who later became known as Betty Ford, with whom he had 4 children, 3 sons, Michael, John, and Stephen, and 1 daughter, Susan. Ford served in Congress for 25 years. Well-liked and ideologically flexible, he won the role as House Minority Leader in 1965 and held this position until President Richard Nixon named him Vice President in 1973. During his time in Congress, he had developed a reputation for honesty and openness. When Nixon's Vice President Spiro Agnew was forced to resign from office in disgrace, the president had no choice but to nominate the only Republican whom the Democratic leadership of Congress will approve, the affable Jerry Ford. In 1974, when it became clear that President Nixon would face criminal charges for his role in the Watergate scandal, and 3 articles of impeachment had been passed by the House Judiciary Committee, President Nixon resigned effective August 9. On that same day, Ford took the oath of office and became president, stating, "Our long national nightmare is over." He retained the foreign and diplomatic policy staff of the president, that is of President Nixon administration, including Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. One of President Ford's early acts as president was the announcement of a conditional amnesty program for those who had evaded the draft or deserted during the Vietnam War. The most attention-getting act of his years in office, and the move that for many destroyed his credibility, followed in the next month. On September 8, 1974, declaring that in the end, it is not the ultimate fate of President Richard Nixon that most concerns me, but rather the immediate future of this great country. That is open and end of quote there. Fox pardoned Nixon for all offenses against the United States that he had committed or may have committed while in office. At the time, the pardon was enormously unpopular with the American public, and most speculated that it was a result of quid pro quo between Nixon and Ford. That means it is that Ford promised Nixon a pardon in exchange for the presidency. Ford voluntarily appeared before a subcommittee of the House of Representatives on the 17th of October 1974, to explain his reasoning, the first time a standing president had formally testified before a committee of Congress. In subsequent years, allegations of a deal have been dismissed both by former Watergate prosecutors and by Ben Bradles, the editor of the Washington Post, during Watergate, who offered that Ford's pardon of Nixon was the act of a compulsively decent man. In other startling move, Ford annoyed members of his own party by naming Nelson Rockefeller, both a party liberal and a representative of the so-called Eastern establishment, as his vice president. In a close contest at the Republican convention in August of 1976, Ford won his party's nomination despite a serious challenge by Ronald Reagan, the former governor of California, who later became a future president. The fall of Ford became the first incumbent president to agree to public debate with the challenger, Jimmy Carter, the Democratic nominee. Ford ran substantially behind from the beginning of the campaign, owing in large part to negative fallouts from the Nixon pardon, but also the general public's perception of his ineptitude. Gerald Ford was defeated in the November 1976 United States general election by a popular vote of 40.8 million to 39.1 million and an electoral college vote of 297 to 240 by President Jimmy Carter. Yes. So that is it. That is the up and downs of Gerald Ford and the Watergate scandal. International diplomacy here at a very high level. International politics and politicking. Yes, if you want to get the full details of this scandal and looking at the diplomacy behind the scandal, then you have to read the books I mentioned. The Real Watergate Scandal by Geoff Shepard, Watergate by Jules Archer, and Watergate, The Hidden History by Lama Waldron. If you go online, you can find several other topics, several other books by other authors that you can study, but I'm recommending these three. The number to call once again, 08064641536. We are going on a short break, and when we come back, we'll go back to where we stopped last week. That is Nigerian politics, military politics, if you want to call it that way. July 29 mutiny. Some people call it the revenge coup. Remember on the 15th of January 1966, a military coup took shape in Nigeria, which resulted to the death of high-ranking politicians and military officers. The Prime Minister of the Federation, Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, was murdered. The Premier of Northern Region, who was at the time the Sardauna of Sokoto, Samadu Bello, was also murdered. The Premier of Western Region, Sir Ladoke Akintola, was also murdered. The Federal Minister for Finance, Chief Festus Okotie-Eboh, was murdered. Then high-ranking military officers were slain. Brigadier General Samuel Ademolegun, the Commandant 1st Brigade Headquarters in Kaduna, was murdered. Brigadier General Zakaria Mimalari, Commandant 2nd Brigade Headquarters in Lagos, was murdered. Colonel Kon Mohammed, the Chief of Army Staff, was killed. Colonel Raphael Shodeinde, the Commandant Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna, was also the second in command at the 1st Brigade Headquarters in Kaduna, was killed. Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Pam, the Adjutant General of the Nigerian Army, was also murdered. For the record, Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Pam was the father to the former Chief Medical Director of the Jos University Teaching Hospital, Professor Ishaya Pam, who was also the chairman of Jute FC. Lieutenant Colonel Abago Lajama, the commandant, that is a commanding officer, 4th Infantry Battalion in Ibadan, was killed. Lieutenant Colonel Ato Negbe, the Quartermaster General of the Nigerian Army, was killed. So looking at all this list, you agree that a lot of northern officers and a few Midwestern officers were killed and only one Igbo officer was killed. That was Ato Onegbe. So the northern politicians and the northern soldiers became agitated, and they began planning for a revenge coup. Some called it the rematch. And that was what led to the July 29 mutiny of 1966. I'm going on this short break, and when we come back, we'll continue from where we stopped last week. The program remains Issues in Perspective, a production of History Desk TV Limited. Please stay with us. Don't go nowhere.
Power. Discover what it all means. It's a class on history and guide to today. From national debates to global.
Nobody don't call yet.
807.
Okay, but calls when they come in.
Yes.
800.
Check your distance.
Wonderful.
Yes, 895.
Miss calls. Wonderful shall never end. Master grammar in the book. Like brother Shaggy. Wonderful shall never end.
So from now on, start becoming.
Yes.
Sure, people have been calling. You can likewise comment, post your comments on TikTok pages, Facebook, YouTube pages, and also Facebook pages.
All right, good.
We're good.
Yeah, welcome back. Looking at where we stopped last week on Wednesday, we're talking about the July 29 mutiny of 1966. And we're trying to have a background on how Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon became head of state at the age of 31. We had several officers that were older than Gowon, even in rank, even in the military. Yes. If you want to look at northern troops, even the likes of Lieutenant Colonel Hassan Usman Katsina, the likes of Lieutenant Colonel Mohammed Shua had a little edge over Gowon. But Gowon was strategically planted. He was the Army Chief of Staff. But at that time, the Army Chief of Staff was not number 2 man in government. The number 2 man in government was Brigadier General Babafemi Ogundipe. I think we gave you all this background last week. And we told you why Ogundipe failed to become head of state. Naturally, after the death of, or shall I say disappearance at that time, because the death of the head of state, Major General Aguiyi Ironsi, had not been confirmed. But after his disappearance, the most likely person to take over government was the Chief of Staff Supreme Headquarters, who at the time was Brigadier General Babafemi Ogundipe. But the northern troops refused to take orders from him. Yes. I reeled it out here last week. And at the time, an NCO told him, Oga, I can't take orders from you until let me hear from my captain. Like referring to getting orders from another northern officer who was the captain. At this point, Ogundipe knew that he had lost out. And started making strategic moves, to depart Nigeria. So that was it. The leader of the coup, the July coup, was Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Mohammed. 3 major officers were at the forefront. Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Mohammed, he's from Kanu. Major Theophilus Yakubu Danjuma, from today's Adamawa. Is it Adamawa Taraba? From today's Taraba. Then Major Martins Adamu from today's Plateau State. Major Martins Adamu from today's Plateau State. These were the officers that were really, really involved. They were the front runners, or the original ringleaders, if I'm permitted to use that word. They were the original ringleaders in that July 29 mutiny. So in the confusion that took shape between 29 July to 1st of August, the confusion that took place towards this period. So it was agreed that the most senior officer of northern Nigerian origin that was within the Lagos axis at that time should take over. That was how Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon became head of state. It was not really part of the coup, but that didn't mean he didn't know that the coup was in the offing. He knew a coup was being planned, but he was not part of it. Murtala Mohammed was the original ringleader and wanted to be head of state. but because of the prevailing circumstances at the time, he wasn't. He couldn't become head of state. Hello, the number to call again 080-6464-1536. 080-6464-1536. This is the number to call. You can make your contributions. You can make your contributions. So we told you about how the coup took shape at the Abeokuta garrison. Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Okonwinze had gathered officers at the mess after being informed that the coup was going to take shape that night. He gathered officers in the mess to advise them, not to get themselves involved, and that anybody who is involved should tell him that his ambition in life was to become a commissioned officer in the Nigerian army, that he was a happy man already rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel. As he was discussing with them, there were other officers in the mess. Major John Obieni was also in the officers' mess. And he now ordered that all weapons should be taken back to the armory. So northern soldiers hearing this felt that their plot had been uncovered. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Okay, this is Mbum. Yeah, I'm calling from George.
Okay, you're welcome to the show. Please, your contribution quickly. It was very bloody. So later on, after 2 days of intense negotiations between Yakubu Gowon, some other officers, and the troops carrying out the rebellion in Lagos, it was agreed that the northern troops should jettison secession because the northern troops wanted to secede. It was agreed that the northern troops should jettison secession. So that was how they rallied round and decided to take over the whole nation. But one man, Lieutenant Colonel Odumegu Ojukwu, was the military governor of Eastern Region, refused to recognize Yakubu Gowon as head of state. There were several meetings, to try to reach an understanding between both men, including a 4th January 1967 meeting in Aburi, Ghana. But after all this, nothing happened. Both parties refused to come to an agreement. So it is rather a very, very unfortunate situation, and it's one of the most unfortunate period in Nigeria's military and political history. So that was it. It's very important that we understand where we are coming from. This is a particular reason why this show is on air in the first place. It's very important we understand where we are coming from so that we can know how to fathom our future. I've always said that here. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from? Hello, good morning. Okay, I think we are having problems with the lines. The number to call is 080-6464-1536. You can call to make your contributions so that we have a discussion. We have a meaningful discussion. We have a meaningful education. Let's educate ourselves. Let's argue. Let's find out situations, so that we'll really know how to subject some issues into some level of analysis. But I want you to know that it's very important. It's very important that will subject these issues into analysis. The July 29 mutiny. So after 2 days of intense negotiations, the British Council as well as the American Council in Nigeria had to also come in, and they also rendered their own advice. But at the end of the day, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon emerged as the head of state. He emerged as the head of state. Yes. He was 31 years old. Yeah, Yakubu Gowon was 31 years old. He ruled for 9 years. And let me let you know that Yakubu Gowon not only being the youngest man to rule Nigeria, but to climb the mantleship of leadership in Nigeria at 31. Till date, is also the only man who came in as head of state unmarried. Yes, he married while he was in power. He married on the 19th of April, 1969. That's when he got married to his sweetheart, Victoria, in Lagos. And he was also one of the youngest members of the Supreme Military Council at that time. So Gowon ascended the mantleship of leadership in Nigeria at a very unenviable period. It wasn't a time anyone would envy Gowon, because he had to try his bit to try to settle the rift existing between Nigeria and the Eastern Regional Government of Lieutenant Colonel Odumegu Ojukwu. Remember, before the outbreak of even before the July 29 mutiny, there was the Araba riot in Kaduna, the Araba test riot. Some call it the test riot because they're trying to test the ground to see if the North could secede from the rest of Nigeria, following the killing of their politicians and military officers in January. So the test riot came up. Started the test riot started on the 29th of May. Yes, the 29th of May, 1966, in Kaduna, and it led to thousands of deaths. The riot was 64641536. Okay. So, as I was saying, this was how Yakubu Gowon became head of state, and he ruled Nigeria for 9 years. He was toppled by the same men. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Good morning. My name is Mbum. I'm calling from Dogodu State.
You're calling from?
Dogodu State, here in Plateau State.
Okay, you're welcome to the show. Your contribution quickly.
Thank you. I enjoy your program. The history you've given, I've never heard of it. I wasn't born by then, so I have to record it. So I have to teach my children. Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. That she has to record it so that she'll teach her children. That is important. You can also get books for your children to study. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Dan. I'm calling from West of Mine.
Okay, Dan from West of Mine. You're welcome to the show. Your contribution, please.
Thank you. I appreciate your program so much.
Thank you very much.
Knowledge of history you are giving us. And I want you to throw more light on Industrial Revolution in Europe. I know about the Berlin Conference.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that when the time comes. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Dan is interested in international diplomacy, and is interested in international history. He wants us to throw more light on the Berlin Conference and the Industrial Revolution in Europe. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello, I'm really enjoying your program. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. What's your name?
My name is Irene Isaac.
Irene Isaac, how old are you?
I'm 12.
You are 12 years.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Irene Isaac, I'm going to recommend some books for you so that you read, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Just stay by your radio and hold your pen. I'll recommend some books. If you can't get the books at the bookshops, you can get the books online. Or ask your parents to download the books for you so that you study, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene, for your contribution. This is very encouraging. Irene Isaacs, 12 years old, and she is happy learning. Yes, she is happy learning. There are a lot of books you can read as regard Nigeria's history. As I will always say, if you want to understand the Nigerian story, you must study Nigeria. If you want to understand the Nigerian story, you must study Nigeria. And so long as we want to study Nigeria, we must be involved with the military, whether we like it or not. Because the military took major part of our history between 1966 and 1999. Yes, the number to call is 08064641536. As I was telling you, General Yakubu Gowon, he rose from the rank of Lieutenant Colonel to General. As a matter of fact, he was promoted from Lieutenant Colonel to Major General in 1967, and from Major General to the rank of General. Yakubu Gowon left office after spending 9 years. He was not even up to 40. Can you beat that? He was overthrown when he was just 39 years old. Yes. That's on July 29, 1975. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Thank you very much. This is Adeomi calling in from Bokiro.
Oh, Adeomi, you're welcome to the show once again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
God continue to bless you.
Amen.
Continue to educate us. Even as the father has said, some of us are not even being born then. When the coup have been there. But you see, in the challenge, the lot of unhappiness that usually leads to the coup plot. You understand?
Yeah.
Even some of the coup are bloodless, and you can see even the death of Murtala Muhammad, who was assassinated. So we will continue to plead with our leaders. Just as you are giving us this, we are learning lessons. Being a 25 years of uninterrupted democracy, let them make Nigeria to be happy. Let them prioritize the welfare of Nigerians and ensure that they give us security. Just as you said, we cannot do without security. So let the security do the needful and effort, because we want the democracy. As the word democracy is even better than the best military. You can see how troops were being plotted here and there. So we are praying for our leaders to succeed, because we don't even want to go back to the military era. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Adeomi, for your contribution. You've always been making very healthy and very beautiful contributions on the show, and we really do appreciate. Yes, and I think I have told a couple of persons here that I will make recommendations so that they read certain books. Yes, for the young girl, the 12-year-old girl that called, I'm going to make some recommendations. I started reading military history before I was even 12. So there's nothing wrong for her to start reading now, and for her likes, and for everyone who is interested in the future of Nigeria. There's nothing wrong for you to start reading, to start studying now. There are books you can study. You know, you can read different accounts of a particular story and come to a conclusion on what you really want, or how you really see these stories from your own perspective. You can't just read a single account. If you read a single account, you've not done yourself any service. You have to read several accounts of these stories. So as I was telling you, Yakubu Gowon was thrown out of government by the same men that brought him to power. The same men that brought him to power in 1966. The young officers like Lieutenant Ibrahim Babangida, Lieutenant Muhammadu Buhari, the likes of Second Lieutenant Sani Abacha, you know, the likes of Captain Ibrahim Taiwo and all that. They were now senior officers. You know, between the ranks of lieutenant colonels and colonels, brigadier general in a few instances. And these officers now truncated his administration on the 29th of July 1975, while General Gowon was at the conference of the Organization of African Unity in Uganda. That's in Kampala, Uganda. That was when his aides now told him while he was there that the government in Nigeria had been overthrown. And Yakubu Gowon, a very wise man in his wisdom, never argued. Even when he had people in Lagos that were ready to fight for him, like Brigadier General Godwin Alabi Sama was commanding a whole battalion and was ready to march his troops to Lagos, because he was the only one that was in complete command of troops at that time. And he was loyal to Gowon. He wanted to march his troops to Lagos. According to his book, The Tragedy of Victory, if you read the book, The Tragedy of Victory by Alabi Isama, he said Murtala now called him and begged him, pleaded with him, Alabi, you have to stand down your troops. Gowon himself is not contesting this coup. Gowon has given up. Why do you want to fight for him? Alabi, please, calm down. That was why Brigadier General Alabi Isama did not storm Lagos. He had the troops. He would have fought for Gowon, and Gowon probably would have still been head of state for some time. But the coup was very popular. The Murtala Mohammed coup of 1975 was very popular, and Gowon too had to leave. He left Uganda. He left Kampala straight for London. And later on, his family, the entire family, were taken to London to join him. You know, so he didn't contest anything. As a matter of fact, Gowon showed remarkable spirit of sportsmanship by wishing the new government well from Kampala when he had a very short press conference. He wished the new government well and said he is against anything that will spill blood again in Nigeria, following the bloody 30-month blockade from 1967 to 1970, where Nigeria was engaged in war. Some people call it the Brothers' War. Yes, some call it the Brothers' War. Some call it the Nigeria-Biafra War. Some call it the Nigeria Civil War. I've decided to personally call it the Nigeria Civil War because we are all brothers. That war, there was no need for that war. It was senseless. But have we learned from it? Have we learned from our experience in the war? Yes. Majority of us were not born at that time. We are aware majority of us were not born at that time, but we heard stories. Our parents told us stories. So that is it. You know, so now the situation now is, have we learned? Well, let me tell you one thing. It's better to be united than to be divided. It's better we are one. We are a diverse nation and we've passed through a lot in this country. So there's nothing that should keep us other than unity. Let's unite against our common enemy. Yes. Our common enemy is maladministration. And how can we unite against our common enemy? It's for all of us to have our voters' cards. We should always have our voters' cards in our hands. So that by the time any politician ceases to behave well, we'll take him out with our cards. So that is it. And that has been working. It has been working very, very well. And we've seen a couple of decent politicians who have emerged in Nigeria as leaders. And one particular man, I'm saying this with every sense of responsibility. If you like, you shouldn't like it, but that's the truth. If you don't want to like what I'm saying, that's the truth. Caleb Manasseh Mutfwan. It's a true leader. Can we take that? Okay, the number to call is 080-6464-1536. We have some decent leaders. The governor of Abia State is doing a lot of good things for the state. Lot of good things. So we must commend these people who have really worked hard, who have shown that they can be leaders. The governor of Borno State, Umara Zulum, is doing a wonderful job. So who tells you, or who told you that we can't have good leaders? If we can have Caleb Mutfwang in Plateau State, we can have Umara Zulum in Borno State, and we can have the man in Abia. Then who told you that we can't have 36 governors that are doing well at the same time? We can get towards that, but we must make our own contributions, because the best way to get there is by using our voters' cards effectively. Yes. As I told you, Jerry Yakubu Gowon was sent out of government by the same men who brought him into power in 1975. The men brought him into power in 1966. They removed him in 1975. And Murtala Mohammed, who felt that he was supposed to be the true and original leader, came into power. I must tell you something. Murtala Mohammed never really respected Gowon as head of state. Why do I say so? There are several stories on how he will badge. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
This is M. Lowell from Southern Cape speaking.
Okay, you're welcome to the show. Your contribution.
Thank you very much for your contribution and for your lecture. We were in school, yes. We were given history as well, like you are saying now. I think General Gowon became the head of state. We describe him as a gentleman leader. And he worked tirelessly to make sure that Nigeria was one. That is, it's a task that Nigeria must be together. Or it was a task rather. But you see, like we had and we read, the lieutenants that were with him decided to overthrow him because of some certain reasons. He wanted to change the status quo then, and some of them resisted. If I may recall, there were 12 states as he created. Well, along with, we are still discussing, and maybe we have to go into history and extract so many important issues concerning Gowon's regime.
Yeah.
And he contributed immensely to make sure that Nigeria was intact. And that is what we are still going through. Well, people are entitled to their opinion.
Exactly.
Say the military have done nothing, whatever. Politicians are doing their own. But I think the military kept Nigeria as one to date. Politicians cannot do without the military. Believe it or not. Thank you very much for educating us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contributions. I am privy to get some first-hand information on these stories because my father was a military man, though a non-commissioned officer. My father left the army at the rank of staff sergeant. But one thing I do not understand today, maybe I'll meet some military friends to really educate me. One thing I do not really understand was how could my father, a staff sergeant, be an instructor at the Command and Staff College, Jaji, and was lecturing lieutenant colonels, and majors. That really beats my imagination till date. And if you go to the CSC in Jaji, till date, it does happen. You see non-commissioned officers as instructors and lecturers, even at the Defense Academy and the military school in Zaria. My father worked under two leaders. At a very young age, he worked under Yakubu Gowon at Dodam Barracks in Lagos. That was in 1974. And my father also worked under General Muhammadu Buhari here in Jos in 1983. That's why he will tell you, I'm quoting him, what he told me personally, that General Muhammadu Buhari is the most honest man he has ever worked with. And you cannot insult Buhari before my father. You'll have a problem with him. May his soul rest in peace. My father died 4 years ago. And he will tell you stories, told us stories, told me stories that made me to understand that war is not something anybody should pray for. I see people making noise on social media saying this, more fight, more do bad ghost, and all that. Hello, good morning, your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, this is Professor Samuel speaking from Vietnam.
Professor Samuel.
Yes,
Professor, you're welcome to the show. Your contribution quickly. We have barely 1 minute.
Yes, I was alive throughout all these events that took place.
Oh, that's very good, Professor.
Let me tell you one thing. Now that regime that overthrew for one, were not happy that we could not fit in for a return to civil rule.
Yes, that's one of the reasons.
And then there were certain things we could not decide on the foreign arena. So
Yeah.
we have to come here and say we are going to hand over this government to civilians on the 1st of October 1979 immediately. And because we want to be sure, I cannot go further than that. But later I'll give you more reasons or it comes to power. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Professor, thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate this, your contribution. Yes, you can read these books, Telling It As It Is by Ayo Adebanjo and My Participation by Bisi Akonde. As I will always tell you, if you must understand the Nigerian story, you must study Nigeria, particularly for the young girl that called and for other teenagers out there. There are books you must study. Also, there is this book, Veritas, The Tale of a Sleeping Giant by Rufai Hosseini. The same Rufai Hosseini you know about that works with Arise TV. Then, This House Has Fallen, Nigerian Crisis by Karl Mayer. Please, you should read these books. On this note, we are ending the show today. We really do want to thank you for being part of the show. On behalf of every members of the production crew led by Ayuba Adams, my name remains Mbum Ferdinand, signing out. Join us again tomorrow for Issues in Perspective.
Politics, power, discover what it all means. It's a class
How to deal with it now?
guide to today. From national debates to global diplomacy.
Okay, let me come on there.
Okay.
Thank you. Eh?
The network.
Yes, the phone bar. But at least later on, it started coming in.
Yes.
816 missed calls.
Let's stop before.
Call this one for me. Close this one.